Good to go? We're going to start pretty soon. Well, I'm going to flip it. Yes. And there's a picture on there. That is not on there. Wait, it's not one of the owners of the... Yeah.
I hear you.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. We're going to start the Sean Combs press conference in about 2 minutes. If you have any questions about presentment, I'll come back out and we'll go over timing and give you a few updates. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Damian Williams, and I'm the U.S. Attorney here in the Southern District of New York. Today, I'm announcing the unsealing of a 3-count indictment, charging Sean Combs with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, interstate transportation for prostitution. The indictment alleges that between at least 2008 and the present, Combs abused, threatened, and coerced victims to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. As alleged in the indictment, to carry out this conduct, Sean Combs led and participated in a racketeering conspiracy that used the business empire he controlled to carry out criminal activity, including sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and the obstruction of justice. Let me say a little bit more about the charges. The indictment alleges that Combs abused and exploited women and other people for years, and in a variety of ways. As alleged, Combs used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sexual performances with male commercial sex workers, some of whom he transported or caused to be transported over state lines. Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time, involved multiple commercial sex workers, and often involved a variety of narcotics, such as ketamine, ecstasy, and GHB, which Combs distributed to the victims to keep them obedient and compliant. As alleged, when Combs didn't get his way, he was violent, and he subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse so that they would participate in the freak-offs, and that Combs hit, kicked, threw objects at, and dragged victims, at times by their hair. On one occasion in March of 2016, that conduct was captured on video and later reported in the media. Specifically, Combs kicked, dragged, and threw a vase at a victim in a Los Angeles hotel when the victim was attempting to flee. As alleged, these assaults often resulted in injuries to the victims, which took days or weeks to heal. In addition to the violence, the indictment alleges that Combs threatened and coerced victims to get them to participate in the freak-offs. He used the embarrassing and sensitive recordings he made of the freak-offs as collateral against the victims. And the indictment alleges that he maintained control over the victims in several ways, including by giving them drugs, by giving and threatening to take away financial support or housing, by promising them career opportunities, by monitoring their whereabouts, and even by dictating their physical appearance. Because of all of this, the indictment alleges that the victims did not believe they could refuse Combs without risking their security or facing more abuse. The indictment also alleges other acts of violence undertaken by Combs and others, including violence against witnesses to his abuse, kidnapping, and arson. The indictment alleges that on more than one occasion, Combs carried or brandished firearms to intimidate and threaten victims and witnesses. Now, Combs did not do this all on his own. As I mentioned, Combs has been charged with RICO conspiracy. He used his business and employees of that business and other close associates to get his way. Those individuals allegedly included high-ranking supervisors in the business, personal assistants, security staff, and household staff. The indictment alleges that those individuals facilitated the freak-offs. They booked the hotel rooms and stocked them with the supplies, including drugs, baby oil, personal lubricant, extra linens, and lighting. When the hotel rooms got damaged, they helped clean it up. They arranged for victims and commercial sex workers to travel for the freak-offs, and they delivered large quantities of cash to Combs to pay for the commercial sex workers. The indictment also alleges that they helped Combs cover up his crimes. During the March 2016 incident at the LA hotel that I mentioned earlier, a member of the hotel security staff intervened, and Combs attempted to bribe the staff member with a stack of cash to make sure that what happened was kept quiet. And as the indictment alleges, in late 2023, after public allegations were made about Combs' crimes, he and others pressured witnesses and victims to stay silent, including by making phone calls to witnesses and victims and giving them a false narrative of what they had experienced. And as alleged, Combs used others to help conceal his abuse by monitoring and preventing victims from leaving a location in order to hide their injuries, or by locating and contacting a victim who had attempted to flee. As part of this investigation, in March of this year, special agents from HSI executed search warrants at Combs' residences in Miami and Los Angeles. They also executed a warrant for Combs' electronic devices. During those searches, agents seized evidence of the crimes charged in this indictment. They seized firearms and ammunition, including 3 defaced AR-15s and a large capacity drum magazine. They also seized evidence of the freak-offs, electronic devices that contain images and videos of the freak-offs with multiple victims. And they seized cases and cases of the kinds of personal lubricant and baby oil that Combs' staff allegedly used to stock hotel rooms for the freak-offs, more than 1,000 bottles altogether. Here are some of the items that we recovered during the searches. As you can see here, this is a drum magazine, large capacity, and it contains, I believe, 59 rounds. I mentioned as well we recovered 3 AR-15s. This is a close-up shot of one of the AR-15s, and you can see right here the serial number has been thoroughly defaced. Another picture of more ammunition and parts of 2 AR-15s right there. Now, I want to be clear about 2 things. First, this office is determined to investigate and prosecute anyone who engages in sex trafficking, no matter how powerful or wealthy or famous you may be. No one should doubt our commitment on that. A year ago, Sean Combs stood in Times Square and was handed a key to New York City. Today, he's been indicted and will face justice in the Southern District of New York. Second, we are not done. This investigation is ongoing, and I encourage anyone with information about this case to come forward and to do it quickly. Anyone with information can call 1-877-4-HSI-TIP. I want to express my deep appreciation for the victims and witnesses who have used their voices and helped bring this criminal conduct to light. We would not be here without them. I also want to thank the dedicated case agents on the HSI Trafficking in Person Squad in New York. They have been with us since day one and have worked tirelessly on this investigation. They will continue to be invaluable partners to us. I also want to thank the incredible agents and analysts from SCNY who have also provided tremendous assistance on this case. I'm deeply grateful for their continued work. And finally, I want to thank the outstanding career prosecutors from SCNY who are handling this case. Meredith Foster, Emily Johnson, Chrissy Slavic, Madison Smeisler, and Mitzi Steiner, and their supervisors, Jamie Backleepter and Jacqueline Kelly. They are members of the Civil Rights Unit in our criminal division. We created the Civil Rights Unit when I became U.S. Attorney. I am deeply proud of their work on this and so many other cases. I'll now take some questions.
Aaron Katursky, ABC.
Thanks, Nick. Damian, thanks. The indictment describes aggressive, open, violent, hedonistic abuse that you say was recurrent and widely known. Why did it take law enforcement so long to intervene? How many women were victimized by Sean Combs, and how many others were involved?
Look, our investigation is ongoing. We are committed to bringing justice to everyone who's been victimized by the defendant. I can't tell you why it took so long. I think the better focus is on the fact that we are here today. And we are committed to making sure that justice is done. Next question.
Thank you. Julia Ainsley, NBC.
Thank you for doing this. You said we are not done and that Combs did not do this alone. Do you foresee that there could be other charges related to this case?
I'm not taking anything off the table.
Janet Fisher, Newsday.
What's the difference between the sex trafficking and promoting travel for the purpose of prostitution?
Well, there are different crimes with different elements. I don't think we should get into the nitty-gritty of the legal discussion right now, but the sex trafficking, we believe, they're all serious offenses, but the sex trafficking conduct carries some significant penalties, and we are gratified that we were able to bring that charge.
Is one more coercive than the other?
I'm not going to be able to get into that, but you can look it up, and yes, sex trafficking, especially when it involves coercion or force, is a very serious crime, and it carries significant penalties.
Good afternoon, Darla Miles, ABC 7 New York. Thank you for this press conference and for the details. 2 questions. In context of this indictment and the information that was presented to the grand jury, are you able to clarify the number of victims? it's mentioned plural in the indictment, but can you specify the number of victims just for this particular indictment? And secondly, can you provide details about the alleged arson?
Unfortunately, I'm not able to provide either. The number of victims, you are correct. We are intentional in saying multiple. The details of the arson incident are limited to what we have in the indictment and also the detention letter that we filed, which contains more details than the indictment does at various points. But we don't have anything more beyond that. Next question.
Lynn Tran, CNN.
Are any of his accomplices or associates under investigation? And additionally, could he face any more charges?
So the investigation is ongoing. That means both as to him and to anyone else who we believe committed the crime with him. Next question.
Juliette Papa.
Hi, good morning from 1010 Wins. Any indication that some of the women or victims here were imprisoned in his residences, and did he have locations where he kept them, and were not allowed to leave? And also, he's indicted here, although there were searches and raids in LA, Miami. Why in New York?
Well, I'm biased. I'm the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of New York. I think that we have an outstanding track record of bringing some of the most impactful, sprawling, complex, difficult sex trafficking, human trafficking, labor trafficking, you name it. The Southern District of New York can do it, and so we're very proud of that. And so the scope and complexity of this investigation isn't something that we ran from. It's something that we embrace, and we will continue to do that. As to your question about whether he imprisoned anyone, all I can say is that, I mentioned this March 2016 incident where something was caught on video, where a victim was attempting to flee, and there was violence that was associated with it.
Was that at the residence or a hotel?
That was at a hotel.
Matthew Lee, Inner City Press.
Thanks a lot. Does your office intend to seek remand, or are you reaching a bail package? And if you're willing, how would you contrast this with the R. Kelly case in EDNY in terms of the elements? Thanks.
So we will be seeking detention. We have filed a letter laying out our reasoning for seeking pretrial detention. I'm not going to be able to expand beyond what's in the letter, but it contains all of the reasoning, and it contains the law as well. There is a presumption of detention in a case like this, and we think that's warranted.
John Anise, New York Daily News.
Thank you. I was hoping to get some more detail about the searches of his residence, the guns, the cases of lubricant, and the videos. Where were they found amongst his residence? Were they all scattered around the houses in one place? I kind of wanted to just get a better picture of how that stuff was found.
Well, look, I think that some of the details that you're seeking are in the detention letter. So, for instance, some of the AR-15s, 2 of the 3 defaced AR-15s were found in his bedroom closet in Miami, broken down into parts, along with magazines, with ammunition loaded in them. So some of that detail is in the detention letter. Beyond that, I'm not going to be able to get into where other items were stored.
Ben Kochman, Post.
Hey, thanks for doing this. Your office was the office that had been prosecuting Jeffrey Epstein before he died in custody. I have not read your detention memo yet. It's the first thing I'm going to do after this ends. But does the memo address, or is your office concerned with Combs' safety in custody, given what happened with Epstein?
So we are concerned with anyone's safety whenever they are detained prior to trial. It's part of our obligations to keep people safe as well. It's part of the criminal justice system. So, but I do not draw any sort of connection between Jeffrey Epstein's suicide and what may or may not happen to any other defendant while they are detained pre-trial. And of course, the decision whether to detain the defendant will be up to a judge. Our position is that pretrial detention is warranted under the law and based on the facts of this case, and I'll leave it at that.
Are some of the prosecutors on this case some of the same prosecutors that had been handling that, or that worked on the Maxwell case?
So I'm not going to get into the staffing. I will say that this team, this group of AUSAs, this incredible group has been working on this case around the clock, and they've had their hands full. Next question.
Gus Rosendale, NBC News.
Good morning, sir. Combs' attorney said that his client has been cooperative with investigators. He said that this morning. I was wondering if you would have a reaction to that.
Let me just say this. I think that generally with increasing frequency, the word cooperative or cooperating has taken on tremendous elasticity and no longer really bears any relation to what the word means when we use it in a very specific context. So responding to lawful process and the like does not qualify as cooperation when we use that term here.
Mike Sisak, AP.
Thanks. To that end, was there any discussion of Mr. Combs surrendering? I understand he was taken into custody at a hotel in Manhattan last night, and maybe that wasn't the plan. Can you elaborate on how that came about and why that was?
I'm not going to be able to get into any sort of operational details as to how he was taken into custody and when. He is in custody right now. He will be appearing in court later today.
Was there any discussion of him surrendering, given they claim he's cooperating?
I'm not going to be able to get into law enforcement tactics or operations.
You make a big deal of the guns, but how come they're not charged outright or with obliterating serial numbers?
Well, I can't get into the charging decision. It is very meaningful to us that weapons were possessed, as we allege in the indictment. Part of the reason why this conduct was so pervasive and harmful was because victims and others didn't necessarily feel comfortable denying him his wishes, as we allege, because of the presence of firearms. I should leave it there.
Thanks. Last question, Jacob Shamison.
Jacob Shamsian, Business Insider. Thank you. Given that he's the sole defendant in this case and that you allege he's part of a conspiracy that involves members of his companies, do you anticipate a superseding indictment that bring allegations against other members of his companies or other co-conspirators as well?
I can't take anything off the table. Anything is possible. Our investigation is very active and ongoing. And I think a lot of you who cover this office know that when we say such things, that developments are certainly foreseeable, but I cannot predict them sitting here today. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
What part of his business empire is exposed to forfeiture?
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And welcome back, everyone, here to Live Now from Fox. We appreciate all our viewers continuing to join us all in real time as we just heard really the damning indictment against Diddy, Sean P. Diddy Combs. We have been bringing that coverage to you right here on Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Mike Page. Thanks again for joining us as we will continue to break this down and subsequently talk about the 14-page indictment against Diddy, Sean Combs. We have it right here, and we want to continue to talk about it right here. So let's bring in a friend here of the program, attorney Jeremy Rosenthal. Thanks so much for being with us on Live Now from Fox. And wow, that was explosive coming from the New York prosecutors here on Diddy and his associates.
I don't know what it is, just a funny feeling. Very sweeping indictment, a lot of allegations, a lot of very damning allegations. This is what the feds do. They measure twice, they cut once. They raided his houses in Miami and in Los Angeles. And then they studied what they got out of it. And then they bring a pretty stiff indictment, racketeering, a lot of allegations of violence, sex, drugs, pretty hard-hitting stuff.
And the indictment alleges that not only was Diddy involved, of course, in these acts and sometimes abuse, but it alleges also that he is almost like a rap mob boss.
Yeah, that's kind of the challenge, if you will, from a legal standpoint when it comes to racketeering. So we know that they don't like P. Diddy Combs. We know that they're saying he beats women, very very graphically detailed in the indictment. They're saying that he gets women high, that he traffics them, that he transports them for sex. These things are offenses and they're crimes in any state of the union. But what they're trying to do to make this federal is they're basically taking the Combs business entities, the Combs empire, if you will, the money, the other people, and they're basically saying, okay, you're an organization, you're a group, and this group is like any other criminal mob, if you will. And based on that, based on the fact that you're sort of utilizing this group, that's what triggers all these racketeering charges. That's what elevates this and makes this all federal. So it's that process, if you will, of taking just sort of what they think is a generic criminal and kind of boxing them up and putting them into this business category, which is why you see the feds involved here. That's kind of the big picture of what's going on.
And I think a person that is reading this and seeing this for the first time, when you see these big-time allegations and just really the severity and the involvement that it took, it seems very complex. And I think a lot of people would ask, okay, it seems like there was a lot of people involved to help this whole Diddy operation. How did it just never get out? How did someone say, look, this doesn't seem right to me, I got to call something? Mm-hmm. Is it because money is always involved here in these types of situations and money sometimes pays silence?
Well, money can certainly be what you might consider flypaper for these types of things, right? If you remember, I think it was November, December last year, he got sued. P. Diddy did, and he settled it the very next day. And there was a lot of allegations there, which kind of laid the breadcrumbs out for the federal authorities and the prosecutors to sort of march down and sort of collect these things. And so P. Diddy obviously drew a lot of attention to himself, has through the entertainment forever and ever. That's obvious. But as far as some of these more illicit activities are concerned, relatively new on the radar. But then you've got them doing the search warrants in Miami and in Los Angeles, very clearly on the radar. Question I have is, as you said, who else is involved and who else is going to become involved? This was an indictment that was sealed and then unsealed. And a lot of the language in the indictment is very, very broad. They reference arson, but they don't tell us how. They reference other people, but they don't tell us who. And then we heard from the from the prosecutor, we hear that other things are on the table. So we don't know if other people are going to be brought into the fold, if other people are indicted under seal and we just don't know it yet. It would be a little unusual because we would expect to see the feds get everybody at once, but they could certainly roll it out more slowly, and maybe that's what develops.
And Jeremy, I also want to get your take. For years, Diddy in his rap songs has really egged on the feds, egged on police, you know, almost calling him sort of the Teflon Don, if you will. Even in one of his songs, he references about New York City. He says, "Ayo, call me Diddy, I run this city. Send the cops, send the DA and feds to come get me." And appears today, that's exactly what they do and did. Jeremy, my question to you is, in the songs, does it have anything to do with some built up, like, hey, if I'm a prosecutor and I'm hearing these things and this guy's been egging me on for years, I want to go find and get this guy finally?
Well, challenge accepted, right? And when you talk about cases like this, I mean, that's certainly going to be, I think, a center point of your defense is, look, I mean, I'm an artist. I am engaging in my right to free speech, and I'm putting out my music. I'm putting out my records. But it's, you know, obviously the feds are people too. I mean, prosecutors are humans too. They're going to tell you, well, no, we don't consider all these things, and we don't retaliate against people, and they're humans just like anybody else. So the fact that they're sort of egged on here certainly lends itself to a good defense, and to say, hey, look, I mean, you're just retaliating against me for me being an artist. So that's certainly part of the equation.
And now, what are the next steps for Diddy, Sean Combs, his legal team here during this three-part indictment here? What are really the next 24, 48, 72 hours look for the legal team?
So right now, he is in federal detention, and he is going to have a detention hearing where it will be determined whether or not he can be released. You heard the prosecutor say that there is a presumption of detention in this case, which sometimes, depending on certain charges and allegations, in the federal system, you don't necessarily just pay money and get out. It's more of a function of safety to the community and making sure that the person can reappear as not a flight risk. So in the federal system, not everybody gets released prior to trial, and certain statutes, certain laws carry with them that presumption, which this one will. That doesn't mean the judge can't release him with certain conditions. That doesn't mean that the judge can't allow some type of release. But that's the next thing on the block here. Is P. Diddy going to be released pending trial? Is he going to stay in federal custody? Obviously, you heard the authorities make it clear they're going to ask the judge to keep him in custody. So that is the next battle in this case before we get to really the substance or meat of any of these allegations. Next question is Diddy going to be a free man or not while this is making its way through the courts?
And I just want to reset right now for our new viewers joining us in. We're just past a new hour here on Live Now from Fox. I'm Mike Page. We have attorney Jeremy Rosenthal joining us to break down the big Diddy news, arrested, and the indictment unsealed. Now, Jeremy, I want to ask you about this one. Can he at this time, along with his legal team, look and say, all right, the dominoes are going to fall. I got a lot of information on people as well. Can he use that and say, let's cut some kind of deal? I'll be a canary in there.
He can try, but the problem is he's in the middle, and he's going to be the target. What the feds like to do is that their job is law enforcement globally, right? And part of doing that is sort of sending a message to the rest of the country. And you don't do that through P. Diddy's driver. You don't do that through P. Diddy's accountant. You do that through P. Diddy. That's his problem and his challenge. He can try to roll over and make this easy. And to some degree, if he doesn't fight so much, he could probably get a very easy sentence. You may remember Jared Fogle of Subway fame. He pled guilty, I want to say 2 to 3 weeks after his arrest. So sometimes people just go and roll over. And maybe that's part of his plan, and he could probably get somewhere based on that. He could probably get somewhere just by rolling over and essentially playing dead, if you will. he could probably get some points off of his federal sentencing guidelines down for not fighting so hard. But as far as rolling over on other defendants, on other suspects, he's the target here. He's at the epicenter, and I don't think they're too interested in the folks around him. They're interested in P. Diddy.
And Jeremy, we were talking about why are some parts here of this indictment very vague. I'm talking about the arson aspect. I mean, when you look at that, you're like, oh, okay, that's a big one too, but it doesn't really explain much. Why is that left out?
It could be that we're going to see that in another indictment with another individual who may be under seal right now. So yeah, a lot of vagary here, and the federal pleadings can be very, very specific at times, and they can be general at times. And obviously, they need to say enough to lay it out in order to put the defendant on notice. That's what the purpose of a charging document is. But at the same time, it could be that we see this more fold out through a different defendant in a different case, potentially in a different indictment. So that could possibly be it. We'll see how they get there. The prosecutor did mention that there was one incident of arson. I don't know if he meant to do that or not. He was very measured, very careful in what he said. So I don't know that he was trying to let on that there were multiple incidents of arson. He said that there was one. We'll see what that's about.
And ultimately, this is a downfall for a rap mogul that has had legal problems in the past, was able to get rid of the gun charge. We all remember that one in the nightclub shooting, where it looked like at times it was going to be very peril for Diddy in that. He was able to escape that, and now years later, we're talking about really this whole conspiracy now of this enterprise that I think a lot of people, Jeremy, when they read this and talk about these allegations, you're looking at someone that was in so many, of course, rap songs, music videos, and you wonder just how can someone juggle all of this and then on the alleged criminal side as well?
I mean, this is what sometimes in the legal profession we call throwing spaghetti on the wall. Which is just a matter of saying that you're just not going to clean it up. You're not going to get it all, and some of it's going to stick. So that's what prosecutors do. That's what creative prosecutors do. That's what aggressive prosecutors do, is they hit you with a bunch of different ways. And again, kind of going back to some of the things that we talked about a few minutes ago, when you have somebody like P. Diddy Combs, who, I mean, he's on videotape beating an ex-girlfriend. Clearly a lot of problems there, and obviously very criminal. Any state of the union that you go to, that's going to be a problem. And a lot of the drugs. But what they're trying to do here is they're taking a lot of his conduct and they're trying to link it to that company. That's what triggers the racketeering, and that's what makes it federal. And that's what really expands the federal government and the Fed's ability to really hit him here, hit him here, hit him here, hit him here, hit him here. And it is just so hard, if you will, to walk through that much rain and not get wet.
Yeah, that's so true. And Jeremy, last question to you. The associates now of Diddy, are they being interviewed simultaneously right now? I'm just talking about even the ones that are on his payroll. Have they already been contacted, or is that something that is going to continue to happen for them?
I think I'd be surprised if it hasn't already happened, and I would be surprised if it didn't continue to happen. Because if you're an employee of Sean Diddy Combs and you see this come out, it's got your attention, I would think. If you may have even gotten, I don't know that they would do this because it's a sealed indictment, but sometimes the feds will issue what's called a target letter, which basically is saying, hey, you're the target of a federal investigation. They're not legally required to do that, and they don't always do that. But you would think that there's definitely some rumblings going on here. And like the prosecutor made clear, this is an ongoing investigation, an ongoing prosecution. What the feds will typically do is when they indict, they are ready to try the case. and they are fully ready to go in every way, shape, or form. So you would assume that that's kind of the case here with P. Diddy. Now, having said that, they're always still working on it, and as they're getting ready, especially if P. Diddy decides he's going to fight this case and go to trial, there's going to be new information that crops up. There's going to be other folks in his sphere that get scared, that may, when they get contacted, or they may pick up the phone and tell the feds, hey, I can help. Don't come after me. That's what happens a lot of times here.
Yeah, this is really, really big news. Jeremy Rosenthal, thanks so much for joining us on this big day for Diddy as this indictment was unsealed. We always appreciate it here on Live Now from Fox. Thanks for waiting to pass that news conference when it popped up. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike. Have a great rest of your day.
You as well. All right, everyone, and we'll continue to follow this here for you. A major story for Sean Diddy Combs as well. So what we'll do is we'll take our first break of the hour. It looks like we have a lot more live content going on right now. We got a live look here in Kentucky as well about the update on the shooting on the highway there. We also have Joe Biden as well. Looks like that one is frozen, but we'll keep an eye on that for you as well. So a lot going on here on Live Now from Fox. Let's take our first 2-minute break. Stay right here with us. We're just getting warmed up for you.